Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here, and I just realized I still have this guy here from when I recorded a Lupin Ranger review, but he can stay, because I need like a visual aid, and I don't have a visual aid, because like, this is what makes the reviews like, oh, this guy's just a boring review with a boring table, but like, boom, toys. Anyway, I wanted to do a quick little video review on this unique new toku series that just came out, called Tokusatsu Gagaga, or as I like to call it, Bo. No, but it's kind of like a parody little meta series, sort of. A lot of people compared it to Akiba Ranger, and it's kind of like that to a certain extent, but not really, unless she suddenly becomes she's aware that she's in a TV show. But it's basically a TV show about a girl that's a Tokusatsu fan and her life. Does that sound boring to you? I don't know. But I thought it was really cool. Episode 1, this is obviously the review for that so far. I don't know if I'll cover this weekly. I'll definitely do a video when the series is done. I wasn't even planning on doing a video about this episode, but I just enjoyed it so much that I had to talk about it and just kind of recommend it to you. In fact, if you haven't watched this episode yet, because I'm going to do some minor spoilers, go look it up, go find it, go watch it. I highly recommend it if you're a Tokusatsu fan of any form. It's super charming, kind of like heartwarming in a way, like it's just really relatable for a lot of different aspects of being a Tokusatsu fan. But yeah, it's basically about this girl, just average everyday girl. Her name's Nakamura? Nakamura. I must have Nakamura. Nakamura. I think that's right. Like Hiro Nakamura. Yatta! It's about her. And she's just kind of a normal person, like an everyday person, works in an office, Dunder Mifflin paper. No, I'm just kidding. But she's like a secret Toku fan. You know, we open up with her watching we get a bunch of like fictional, I mean, all Tokusatsu is fictional shows, but I mean like Tokusatsu shows that are made specifically for this that we get to see. And these in particular suits, they are reminiscent of a couple things. They kind of remind me of Geki Ranger, a lot of people have said this. A little bit of like, you know, Dino Charge stuff, Kyoryuger stuff with like the carnival. A little bit of Live Man too, but it's basically a Sentai show that she's watching at the beginning, and she's like up all night watching it over and over again, and her favorite character is Shishi Leo? Is it Shishi? Because it's like one of those things where it's like lion. But yeah, so she's like a closet Toku fan, and a lot of it is about, like the core storyline, I guess you could say, especially for this episode, is like about her, you know, trying to keep it a secret, you know, just how much to keep it a secret, and her wanting to form connections with people that have the same passion. And it's just super charming, and there's like so many relatable bits. Like there's a scene at the beginning where first she sees this girl with a keychain from the same Toku show, so she gets super excited and like she sees someone else likes Tokusatsu, and then it's because of seeing like a vision of her favorite character on the bus that she gives up her seat to some old people, and like they give her kudos about it later at work. I'm like, why are we being so dramatic? These are the old people, oh my god, they would have to stand. Oh no. No, I'm just a terrible person. But anyway, she gets kudos about it at work, and they're like, oh, how could you be such a good person? And she's thinking about like all the life lessons she learned from Tokusatsu, basically. Like she even says, like in her monologue, like, oh, everything I learned that's a valuable lesson is from Tokusatsu. I'm way paraphrasing there, and I butchered it. Delivery's all wrong, I'm butchering it. And then she kind of just reiterates to them like, oh, I just, you know, why am I such a good person? I just follow the lessons I learned when I was little from Tokusatsu. But she says this stuff to them, but from Tokusatsu's in her head. But it's just super amusing. And then later she's kind of just listening to these girls have a conversation about like a friend that is into nerdy stuff, and she starts getting upset about, you know, the potential for people judging her, which I'm sure we can all find relatable. And she says like, which is a super specific, like like a thing, you know, for Toku, and she says, I hope your shows get preempted by golf for 5 years, because that's something that'll happen often during the year for Toku. You'll be like, oh yeah, Kamen Rider and Sentai aren't on this week because of golf, and like that's like a reference that you'd only get if you're into Toku, and it was just super funny. And she basically comes up with this plan to like get a Gashapon keychain to put on her bag because friends from work love this mascot, and she's like, if mascots are acceptable, why not Tokusatsu? And I could like intermingle this Tokusatsu keychain with acceptable mascot keychains, and then maybe somebody that likes Toku will see it and we can become friends. And so like you have this whole adventure of her trying to find a Gashapon machine that is, you know, not in a public enough place that she'll be seen, which is also like a funny and relatable thing. I don't have so much shame about buying toys anymore. I mean, there definitely was a time where I'd kind of, you know, be shy about it or not look, but it was relatable in the sense that when I'm looking at stuff that I'm buying, anything, whether it's toys, groceries, I hate when the aisle's packed. So like I'll be going down an aisle and be like, oh, I gotta pick up chips, or I want to see if they have some new Ranger toys, and there'll be like one person in an aisle. I'm like, I'll come back. And if they never leave, I'm like, well, guess I'm not looking. And so that was super relatable to me. She winds up finding one at this one corner, and there's like a kid going there, and she goes in this internal struggle of like, oh, do I let the kid get the last one or do I get it? And she forms like a little bond with him over like them getting their favorite characters and trading them, which was kind of a funny moment. Easy question for me. I would have been like, boom, taking the gash bond, bye kid. Wouldn't have had the bonding moment. But so that was super funny. And then it kind of ends up on her having to go to karaoke and her freaking out because the only song she knows is Toku songs. This was also just really funny, super relatable stuff. Sort of adjacent to me because I'm not super into Toku music, if I'm honest. Like, I usually listen to the themes once and then skip them forever because I don't got time to waste that 3 minutes. Like, don't get me wrong, there's lots of Toku themes I like and songs, but I kind of more listen to the background music. But it was super relatable because, you know, whenever I was in like high school or college or whatever, or just out and I'd have headphones in, I can't tell you how many times people would be like, oh, what are you listening to? And it would be like the opening theme of In Space or like the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack. Because people always, it's kind of like one of those things that like normal people talk about, then you just can't find relatable. Like people talk about sports or like their favorite bands, like in depth, like why they like this band and how it sucked after this person left. And I'm like, oh man, I really love the Arrow score. Like, so that was super relatable. And it kind of goes into this conflict in her head where she imagines it as a tokusatsu conflict of this monster trying to get her to out herself as a Toku fan by singing Toku songs. And she gets inspiration from her favorite childhood Toku hero, or one of her first ones, Emmer Jason, who's basically a metal hero and is also the greatest hero of our times. And it sort of ends up with her singing a Toku song in the frame of, oh yeah, I used to watch this when I was a kid. And it gets all her friends excited about it. So she's able to sing it and sort of come at it from a nostalgia perspective. Like, if you were to sing the Mighty Morphin theme at karaoke, everyone would be like, yeah, 90s kid. It was basically like that. And she defeated that fear. And she wore the keychain at the end, and the person that had the keychain on the bus smiled at her. And so there's an opening there for a friendship. So it was just a ton of fun. Like, it was just such a super charming show to watch that kind of like Akiba Ranger was funny and entertaining because of how many like little references you'll only get that are so specific to Toku, like the golf thing, or like in Akiba Ranger it was, you know, when a character gets punched in a warehouse and all of a sudden they're in a field. Like, that's something that really only happens in Toku, so it's super entertaining for that. But I think there was kind of a really nice heart to it as well about, you know, what it's like to grow up with Tokusatsu, the things you learn from it, you take away from it, the experience of it. Because even though my experience of growing up with Tokusatsu was primarily Power Rangers for being younger, but this kind of evoked feelings of that for Power Rangers as well, for growing up with that, but also when I first started getting into Sentai and Rider, because I was like, what, maybe late teens, so like it did evoke those feelings of like, you know, looking at the scans and being into it. So it's still, it kind of covered both experiences for me, both getting into Toku period with Power Rangers and Toku, you know. So I thought that was really cool. And it ties into a lot of relatable stuff. I mean, I feel here in the US that we're a little bit more accepting of nerd culture in some ways, but there's still definitely some, you know, taboos about it. I think in particular for me, like with dating stuff, that seems kind of weird. But I think with Power Rangers and Toku and specifically, it's like a weird spot because nerd culture is more accepted, so you could have a whole conversation about Iron Man and Star Wars now, and it's not as much of a, huh, look at this dork as it was back in the day, but you're like, oh no, I like Power Rangers and Toku, and when I see an orange, I hear Orinchi in my head, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's weird. It's like, oh yeah, man, totally, you're a nerd, that's cool, what do you like? Power Rangers. Oh. So it's got like this weird, it's like the last remaining taboo. Not really, I know there's still people that look down on it, but it's still weird. So it was kind of relatable in that sense, which I think is super cool. But bottom line of this, again, I'm not sure I'm going to cover this every week or every episode, but I wanted to do a video on the first episode because it was just so enjoyable, and I think if you're a Toku fan, both of the show and you've been involved in the community and you know the stuff, then I think it's something you should at least watch the first episode of because I think you'll like it a lot. I'm not going to give it a score, I'm just going to say I highly recommend it. And I'll definitely do a video when the series is over, however long it goes, because I think it'll be fun to talk about for that. They're about 40-minute episodes, which I did not know that, and I was like, oh, I got like 20 minutes, let me watch this. I'm like, oh, it's 40 minutes? I can still do that. But like, I was planning on 20, so I could watch something else. But yeah, very enjoyable. definitely recommend you check it out. Anyway, until next time, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and of course, don't forget to climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for all my videos. So next time, it's Awesome Writer, signing out.